the appellate court, the federal court, ruled by a vote of 7-4 recently on the case brought against the Trump administration, claiming that the tariffs, or not all the tariffs, but the tariffs that are based on the IEEPA, his emergency declaration, and the emergency that he declared, that those tariffs are unconstitutional, or in other words, that he is not authorized by law to unilaterally impose tariffs. We've talked about this many times. We had Larry Salzman, who is part of the Pacific Legal Foundation, which also filed a lawsuit with regard to the IEEPA. There's another lawsuit that's going to a different appellate court, also on this issue. The plaintiffs have won in the lower courts. So this particular case that was decided on Friday was at the International Trade Court, and there was another one. There was a federal district court, both won by those arguing that it's unconstitutional. This is now being appealed by Trump. It's being appealed to the Federal Circuit. The Federal Circuit ruled 7-4 that indeed the International Trade Court was right, and that Trump's use of his tariff power is unconstitutional, that he has no basis to use it. There's nothing in the law that gives him permission to use it. Indeed, the Constitution clearly places the responsibility for tariffs on Congress. And that the IEEPA, which allows the president to declare an economic emergency and engage in certain actions, none of the actions approved by that law constitute tariffs. So, that was the ruling. The court did not order the Trump administration to basically eliminate all the tariffs immediately. Under the assumption that Trump will appeal this to the Supreme Court, they are staying or they are permitting the tariffs to stay in place until the Supreme Court rules it and decides definitively. Now, we've always thought that this case had, first of all, has a huge amount of merit. It's right on its face. But then the question is, how will the Supreme Court rule? And I think Larry said it was a 50-50. And I was pretty optimistic that the Supreme Court would actually rule this unconstitutional. But I'm a little worried, I have to say. I'm a little worried because the 7-4 split in the Federal Circuit Court was basically split by partisan lines. So the 7 judges that were appointed by Democratic presidents voted this was unconstitutional. The 4 judges appointed by Republicans voted this was constitutional. Now that worries me because now it goes to the Supreme Court where, as we know, the conservatives have a majority, or Republican-appointed judges are in a majority. Now the Supreme Court's been pretty independent, but it has given a lot of leeway to Trump. So I don't know how it's going to rule. It's going to be interesting. The judges in this case were pretty clear that because these tariffs are unbound, both in scope, in amount, and in duration, there's nothing in the law that permits this. I mean, if he had said these are temporary tariffs and they were phased, they probably would have let it go. But given that they are unbound and that there's no limit to how much you can do, if reading from the court, it says these tariffs apply to nearly all articles imported into the United States, and in the case of reciprocal tariffs, apply to almost all countries, impose high rates which are ever changing and exceed those set in the U.S., U.S. tariff system and a lot limited in duration. And on that basis, and on the basis that the law does not permit anything like this, they ruled it unconstitutional. Now, I don't know how the Supreme Court's going to rule on this. It's going to be, it's very tricky for them. The Trump administration is, basically placed its entire agenda on this. I mean, Trump tweeted in hysteria that if the Supreme Court overturned his tariffs, it would basically be the end of the United States. The economy would tank. It would be a disaster. If you look at Howard Lutnick said today, quote, such a ruling would threaten broader U.S. strategic interests at home and abroad, likely lead to retaliation and unwinding of agreed upon deals. What would be the retaliation? Tariffs would go down. So the retaliation would be what? Anyway, unwinding of agreed upon deals by foreign trading partners and derail critical ongoing negotiations with foreign trading partners. It's also worth noting that there are no deals. There's just no deals. No deals are being cut. Indeed, Japan's lead negotiator was supposed to come to the United States and basically has delayed his trip because the U.S. keeps changing the terms and keeps reneging on stuff, and it's back and forth. And so he's going to wait until some of these things are hashed out. There is no deal with Japan. There's just a unilateral declaration by the president of this is the tariffs and this is what's expected. But there is no deal. Now, I think absolutely this is the right decision. As the court wrote, the core congressional power to impose taxes, such as tariffs, is vested exclusively in the legislative branch by the Constitution. Tariffs are a core constitutional power. But again, this is here's what Trump said: if these tariffs ever went away, ever went away, if allowed, where was it? I had it here. If these tariffs ever went away, it would be a total disaster for the country. If allowed to stand, this decision would literally destroy the United States of America. So no panic there, no hyperbole, no panic, no attempt to rile everybody up. Literally, the country would be destroyed if we just went back to the system that existed a month ago. Anyway, this is going to the Supreme Court. I'm pretty sure they'll take it. I have no idea how they're going to rule. I have no idea. You would think that somebody like Gorsuch is sensitive to separation of powers, very sensitive, the sole basis of being against all the regulations in the kind of by regulatory agencies. You think that somebody like Gorsuch would rule that this was unconstitutional? But given how much emphasis Trump is putting on these, how much weight he's putting on them, is how much influence is Trump going to have on these judges in terms of how they rule? I don't know, but it's going to land up being one of the most important decisions the Supreme Court has ruled in, certainly since they overturned Roe. In economic freedom, one of the most important, well, in terms of separation of powers, one of the most important in a very long time. If Trump can get away with this, with these tariffs, first of all, it emboldened him to just declare an emergency whenever he doesn't agree with Congress and just do whatever the hell he wants. We are heading towards, already in a number of different fronts, we're heading towards an imperial presidency, a president that doesn't care about Congress. And Congress, in many respects, has taken itself out of the equation. Remember, Congress could pass a law tomorrow eliminating these tariffs, but it won't. So Congress has made itself irrelevant. And the only thing preventing Trump from just doing whatever the hell he wants, literally whatever the hell he wants. are the courts. And it looks like many of the district courts and the appellate courts are willing to take a stand against Trump. We still haven't seen the Supreme Court really be willing to take a stand against Trump. And it'll be a real decisive factor in terms of the future of this country, really. I mean, not to be too dramatic about it, but if this presidency has already changed the balance of power between the president and Congress and the courts and everything else dramatically in favor of the president. It's already an executive that's more active than any executive probably ever. FDR ultimately was reined in. This is probably more than FDR even. And so it's going to be interesting to see if he can be reined in. And this doesn't just mean if Trump can be reined in. It really means, can the president be reeled in as a president? Can the executive be reeled in? Or are we destined to one despotic president after another doing whatever the hell they want, basically, right? Using the power that they have and the power that Congress refuses to take back to impose their will. I mean, there are going to be a number of interesting court cases. We're going to get to one in a minute about the Federal Reserve, but we've got the takeover in D.C., which will probably pass muster, but then. From what I understand, there are real preparations for using federal troops in Chicago. And then what? Right? What happens then? What happens in terms of executive power in terms of just deploying troops whenever they want? To whatever places they want. So anyway, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. Trump has, again, historically taken more power than any president before him that I can think of. Again, FDR is the only guy that comes to mind as trying to do something similar and not succeeding. Not succeeding up to a point. I mean, got a lot of stuff done that the courts, if he had not caused them to submit to his will, they would have blocked. So a lot of stuff happened under FDR that would have been blocked, and that expanded again executive power dramatically, and we're still suffering from that. We're still suffering from the remnants of FDR. Now Trump's taking it to the next level. How long will we suffer from that?